Okay, so today we're going to look at multiplication and division equations. So these equations, think about last week we did addition and subtraction. They're all going to have variables in them. Remember, variables, just the fancy math word. And all it means is it's the letter that we put in place of a number until we can figure out what that number is. So we've done addition and subtraction. Now we're going to look at multiplication and division. One thing that's really important to remember is you've got to think about how multiplication and division work together. They're inverse operations, which means they're opposite of each other. So you can, if you get a multiplication problem, the opposite's going to help you. So division can help you solve it, and vice versa. We'll look at a couple of those. So if we look at n divided by 7 equals 8. That's one of the equations that is on your lesson for today. So n divided by 7 equals 8. That means we need to figure out if we know the biggest number, if we're looking for the biggest number. So n divided by 7 equals 8. Whatever n is, if you divide it out into 7 different groups, there are 8 pieces in each group. So that means that n has to be our biggest number. So then we think, what divided by 7 equals 8? Well, I can solve that by doing 8 times 7. We know that 8 times 7 equals 56. So that means that n has to equal 56 because 56 divided by 7 equals 8. Another one that we can look at is what if, and some of them, if your n is in the middle, so that one the n was on one side, so we could do the opposite. If your n is in the middle though, sometimes it's just easier to know. 24 divided by n equals 6. 24 divided by what equals 6? What do you divide 24 by to give you 6? Well, we know 24 divided by 4 equals 6. So we can really quickly say, okay, n equals 4. That makes sense. There are some, though, where you're going to have to really work the math out. So if we see 9n equals 729. So here's somewhere that you could get confused. And when you don't see, it doesn't tell you 9 plus n, 9 minus n, 9 times n, or 9 divided by n. So if you ever see just the number and a letter next to it, that means you're going to multiply. 9 times n equals 729. So 9 times another number is going to give us 729. That means that 729 is our biggest number. So I know that this is multiplication. Now I want to think, what's the opposite of multiplication? Well, I know that the opposite of multiplication is division. So that means I should be able to figure out what n is by dividing 729 divided by 9. So let's do that. We're going to list our multiples. We have 9, 18, 27, 36, 45, 54, 63, 72, 81. And then I divide, multiply, subtract, and bring it down. If you do the box method of division, you're going to get the same answer. I'm just going to show standard algorithm. So how many times can 9 go into 7? Well, I come over here to my multiples. 9 is my smallest multiple, so that means that 9 can't go into 7. So I can look at 72. How many times can 9 go into 72? Well, let's check out our multiples. How close can I get to 72 without going over? Look, that's a perfect match. And that is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's the 8th multiple. So 9 can go into 72 8 times. 8 times 9 is 72. 72 minus 72 is going to give us 0. And we can bring down that 9. We're ready to start again. How many times can 9 go into 9? Well, I look. 9 can go into 9 one time. 1 times 9 is 9. 9 minus 9 is 0. I have nothing left to bring down, and I have no remainder. So that means 729 divided by 9 is 9. We can also look at that as 9 times 81 is 729. So that means that n is 81. That is my missing piece. You're going to have a couple problems on this lesson that are going to ask you not necessarily to solve the problem, but they're going to ask you to figure out how to set up the equation. So one of those, you're going to be talking about a lady named Gilda, and Gilda's making a sponge cake. And Gilda's sponge cake is 3 times as long as it is wide. So just thinking about that, 3 times as long as it is wide. So that means it is longer than it is wide. And we have to do 3 times the width gives us the length, because we know that the length is 3 times the width. So then it tells us that Gilda's sponge cake is 18 inches long. So 3 times the width equals 18. But then it asks us, it doesn't ask us to solve, it says use n to represent the width. Use n to set up an equation. So all we do for that, this width is our unknown. So we're just going to call it n. 3 times n equals 18. So some of these word problems, you just have to figure out what are they asking and put it in the equation. Now if you wanted to solve that equation, 3 times what equals 18? We know 3 times 6. So we could look at it and we could say, okay, n is 6, so that means Gilda's cake is 6 inches wide. We could do that.